My name's Isabella Williams, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who make you feel the smallest. It started on my mother's 55th birthday. The house was full of expensive perfume, laughter that didn't feel real, and guests who only came to be seen, not to celebrate. That's how every event at our home felt. Polished, but hollow. I sat at the end of the long dining table, watching my mother, Margaret Williams, glide between her guests like she was floating on pride. Everything about her screamed perfection: the diamond necklace, the perfectly tailored dress, the way she said my sister's name like a trophy. "Oh, Victoria just got promoted at the firm. We're so proud." Then her eyes landed on me. Her smile vanished. "And Isabella," she said, pausing just long enough for the room to quiet, "is still dating that. What is he, again? Mechanic? Carpenter?" The room filled with nervous laughter. I swallowed hard. "His name's Daniel," I said softly. "He's in construction. He builds homes." My mom chuckled like it was the funniest thing she'd ever heard. "How romantic. Maybe he can build you one when you can afford it." Even Victoria laughed. My face burned. I wanted to disappear, but I stayed still, not because I was strong, but because I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me cry. After dinner, I found her outside on the patio, swirling her wine like a queen. "Why do you do that?" I asked quietly. "You humiliate me in front of people every chance you get." She didn't even look up. "Because I'm trying to save you, Isabella. You think love is enough? It's not. Love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't get you status. Marry rich, or you'll spend your life regretting it." Her voice was cold, sharper than the glass in her hand. "Mom, I don't want to marry for money." Finally, she turned to me, her eyes like knives. "Then don't come running back to me when that builder boy leaves you broken." That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not anger, not rebellion, just release. I realized I'd been living my entire life trying to please a woman who only loved me when I made her look good. I walked away that night without saying another word, and as I closed the door behind me, I didn't know it yet, but that was the last time I'd ever be the disappointment. Because soon, she'd see exactly who her daughter had become. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment, staring at the wall. The sound of laughter from my mother's party still echoed in my head, but what hurt most wasn't her words. It was how easy they came to her. She didn't even hesitate to tear me down. And the worst part? She truly believed she was right. For her, success was measured in status, in cars, in marble floors and gold rings. For me, success was Daniel, a man who could build something real out of nothing. I remember when we first met. It wasn't at some fancy event or party. It was at a coffee shop near my work. I spilled my drink, and he handed me a napkin with the softest smile I'd ever seen. His hands were rough, calloused, but gentle. He wasn't rich. He wasn't polished. But when he looked at me, I felt seen, really seen, in a way no one else ever had. He didn't care that I was Margaret Williams' daughter. He cared that I laughed at his stupid jokes. That I liked the smell of rain. That I couldn't cook pasta to save my life. When I told my mom about him, she laughed. "Construction," she said. "So, what's next, Isabella? You'll live in a shack and call it modern minimalist?" She always knew how to twist things just enough to make me doubt myself, but that night, after her birthday humiliation, I realized I couldn't let her control my happiness anymore. I called Daniel. "Hey," he said, his voice calm, grounding me instantly. "You okay?" "No," I whispered. "But I will be. Can I come over?" By the time I reached his small apartment, I was shaking. He didn't ask questions. He just opened his arms, and for the first time in a long time, I cried, not because I was weak, but because I was tired of pretending to be someone I wasn't. "You don't have to prove anything to her," he murmured. "Let her think whatever she wants. She hates me, Daniel. She'll never accept you. Then we'll build a life she can't ignore." He said it so simply, build a life. Maybe that's why I loved him. He didn't make promises wrapped in diamonds or expensive gifts. He offered something better, a future built with his hands, with effort and love. Over the next few months, we did exactly that. We saved every penny, worked late nights, and slowly began building something that was ours, a home, a life, a dream. But every step of progress, my mother found a way to poison it. When she heard we'd gotten engaged, she didn't congratulate me. She said, "I hope your little fairy tale ends before you drag my name through the mud." And when we sent out wedding invitations, she returned hers, ripped in half. No note. No message. Just silence. It broke my heart. But not my spirit. I told Daniel, "I don't care if she doesn't come. I'm not marrying her approval. I'm marrying you." And he just smiled, that warm, steady smile that made me feel safe. "Then let's make this wedding ours, not hers." We planned a small ceremony at a vineyard just outside town. No luxury, no extravagance, just simplicity, nature, and love. But days before the wedding, something unexpected happened. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Hello? I answered. Is this Isabella Williams? Yes. This is Mr. Bennett, your mother's company attorney. She's requested a meeting. Urgent. For a second, my heart froze. Why would she want to see me now? When I asked Daniel, he said, maybe she's finally ready to talk. Go. But don't go there hoping she's changed. He was right. I shouldn't have hoped. Because that meeting would reveal something that changed everything, about her, about me, about what Daniel was truly hiding. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. I couldn't sleep anyway, my mind had been spinning all night. My mother hadn't spoken to me in months, and now suddenly her lawyer wanted an urgent meeting? I stood in front of my closet, staring at the same 3 dresses I always wore to formal things. I picked the dark blue one, simple, calm, and a quiet middle finger to her obsession with glamour. Daniel was still half asleep when I grabbed my keys. You sure about this? He asked, voice rough and warm. No, I said honestly. But I need to face her. He nodded. Remember, don't let her pull you back into her world. Her world. The one made of glass smiles, expensive lies, and people who thought feelings were weakness. When I walked into the lobby of Williams & Company, the company my mother had built from the ground up, everything felt colder. The receptionist recognized me immediately but looked uncertain, like she wasn't sure if she should say, welcome, or, why are you here? Your mother's expecting you, she said quickly, avoiding my eyes. The elevator ride to the 19th floor felt endless. Every ding of each floor made my stomach twist tighter. When the doors finally opened, I saw her, Margaret Williams, my mother, sitting behind her glass desk, looking flawless as always, but something was off. She looked tense. Her fingers drummed against a stack of papers. There was a folder open in front of her, and when she looked up, that perfect smile appeared again, the one that always meant trouble. Isabella, she said, voice smooth like silk on ice. You look tired. Good morning to you too, I replied. She gestured for me to sit. You must be wondering why I called you. I folded my arms. You think? She sighed, pretending to sound wounded. I just wanted to make sure you're making the right decision before it's too late. There it was, the tone. The one that said you're still my foolish daughter. Too late for what, Mom? For you to approve? For you to ruin your life, Isabella. You're marrying a construction worker. Do you have any idea what people will say? I laughed bitterly. People like your friends, who only show up for free champagne. I don't care. Her face hardened. You think you're independent, but you're not. You're still my daughter. And your choices reflect on me. That's when she slid the folder toward me. Open it. Inside was a document, a prenup. But not for me. For Daniel. I blinked. What is this? Protection, she said coolly. If he really loves you, he'll sign it. If not, you'll know what he's really after. My hands were shaking. You've been investigating him? Of course I have. You think I'd let you marry a man without knowing what kind of background he has? I pushed the folder back across the desk. You don't get to control this, Mom. Oh, I do, she said sharply. Because when that man leaves you, don't you dare come crawling back. I stood up, furious. You don't even know him. And you do? She snapped. You think love means you understand a man? Wake up, Isabella. Men like him always want something. Her words echoed in my chest. I wanted to scream that she was wrong, that Daniel was different, but deep down, the doubt she planted started to take root. I stormed out of that building without looking back. Fighting tears the whole way to my car. Daniel was waiting for me at home. The moment he saw my face, he pulled me close. She did it again, didn't she? She gave me a prenup, I said through shaky breaths. A what? He frowned. She wants you to sign it, just to prove you're not after money. He went silent, not angry. Not hurt. Just still. That stillness scared me. Daniel? I'll sign it, he said finally. I stared at him. What? You don't have to, no, he said quietly. If that's what it takes to prove I'm not like the men she thinks I am, then I'll sign it. Something in his tone made my stomach twist again, not because I doubted him, but because I could tell he was hiding something. But I didn't push it, because for the first time, I realized, the war between my mother and me wasn't just emotional anymore. It was about truth. And one of us was about to find out who really had the power. The morning of my wedding didn't feel like a fairy tale. It felt like standing in the calm before a storm. The vineyard was breathtaking, rows of grapevines swaying in the soft wind, sunlight spilling through the clouds, painting everything in gold. It should have felt perfect. It should have been the happiest day of my life. But as I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection in the white silk gown Daniel and I had saved for months to afford, there was this ache inside me, not for my mother's presence, But for the silence she'd left behind. No call. No message. Not even a good luck. Just absence. Daniel knocked softly before entering. He wasn't supposed to see me before the ceremony, but we'd never been good at following rules. He looked sharp, dark suit, rolled up sleeves, that unshakable calm that somehow steadied my entire world. You look. He paused, searching for words. Like the reason I'm still breathing. I smiled faintly, but there was a tremor in my voice. You sure about this? He reached for my hands. I've built homes, Isabella. I know when something is meant to last. We are. It wasn't poetry, but it was real. And that's all I'd ever wanted. The ceremony started just as the sun began to dip. Friends, coworkers, a handful of people who'd stood by us, but no family from my side. My mother's empty chair near the front row stared at me like a ghost. I kept my eyes on Daniel. His steady gaze told me everything I needed to hear. When it came time for the vows, Daniel pulled out a small folded note from his pocket. His voice was low, sincere. You once told me love didn't need to be loud to be real. You were right. I don't promise you perfection, Isabella. I promise you peace. I promise to build a life where you never have to beg to be seen. I tried to hold back tears. But they slipped out anyway. When it was my turn, I said. You taught me that strength isn't in status, it's in choosing someone who never makes you feel small. You've already given me more than I ever dreamed of. Everyone clapped softly when we said I do. It was beautiful. It was simple. It was ours, but right as the music started, I noticed something strange. At the back of the crowd. Under a tree, a black car was parked, tinted windows. Engine running. My chest tightened. The car door opened for a moment. Just long enough for me to see a glimpse of someone inside, elegant posture. Red lipstick, diamond earrings. It was her. My mother. She wasn't dressed for a wedding. She wasn't smiling. She just sat there, watching, like a judge passing silent judgment. Before I could react, the car door closed, and it drove away. My heart pounded so hard it almost drowned out the music. Part of me wanted to run after her, demand to know why she came just to leave. But Daniel's hand found mine, grounding me again. Who was that? He whispered. No one, I lied, but the truth was, I knew exactly who it was. And if she'd seen what she thought she saw. Something told me this wasn't the end. That night, after everyone left, Daniel and I sat by the fireplace in our small vineyard cottage. We didn't talk much, we didn't need to, but as he leaned his head against mine, I caught something in his eyes. A flicker, of fear? Regret? I couldn't tell. You okay? I asked. Yeah, he said, almost too quickly. Just tired. Long day. He kissed my forehead and went outside to make a call. I stayed behind, still in my dress. Watching his silhouette through the window. He spoke in a low voice, pacing back and forth. Glancing around like he didn't want to be seen. When I opened the door slightly, I caught only one line of his conversation. Yes, sir. She still doesn't know. My breath caught in my throat. Who was he talking to? And what didn't I know? That one line, yes, sir. She still doesn't know. Kept echoing in my head like a haunting melody that wouldn't stop. I didn't sleep that night. While Daniel snored softly beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My heart pounding against the silence. Every scene from the past few months started replaying in my mind, every moment that didn't quite make sense, the nights he'd come home late. The calls he said were work-related. The way he'd flinch every time I mentioned my mother's company. At first, I brushed it off as stress. But now? It all fit too perfectly. The next morning, while he was out buying groceries, I went looking. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I needed to know if my mother had been right all along. In his office drawer, beneath blueprints and invoices, I found a business card. It read, Daniel Carter, Project Director, Williams & Company. Construction Division. For a few seconds, my brain couldn't process it. Williams & Company. My mother's company, the same company she had mocked him for being beneath. The same man she refused to accept, was working for her all along. No. Not just working for her. The title, Project Director, meant authority. Power. My hands trembled as I stared at the card. Why didn't he tell me? Why would he hide that? When he came back later, I was sitting at the kitchen table, the card between my fingers. He froze. Where did you find that? You mean the one with your secret life printed on it? I snapped. Isabella, listen, no. You listen. You told me you worked for a small firm. You never mentioned working for my mother's company. He exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. I was going to tell you. When? On our first anniversary? Or after she finally found a way to ruin us again? He looked at me with something between guilt and frustration. You think this is what you think it is, but it's not. Then tell me what it is. There was a long pause. Then he said quietly, your mother offered me a position 6 months before I proposed. She wanted me close. She wanted information about you. I froze. What? She didn't trust you. She thought you were wasting your life. She wanted me to keep her updated on what you were doing. My stomach turned. And you agreed? At first, yes, he admitted, his voice breaking. I needed the job. I thought she was just a concerned parent. But the moment I met you, really met you, everything changed. I stopped sending her updates. I stopped answering her calls. I shook my head, tears spilling. You lied to me, Daniel. Every single day. No, I loved you. Every single day, he said, stepping closer. I was trapped in a deal I didn't understand. But I chose you. I walked away from her contract. That's why I started my own business. But all I could hear was my mother's voice from that night. Men like him always want something. Was she right? He reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled away. You should have told me. I know. And you worked for her this entire time. Not anymore. He grabbed the card and tore it in half, letting the pieces fall to the floor. But that didn't erase the betrayal. For the rest of the day, we barely spoke. The house felt heavy with the weight of everything unspoken. That night, when he fell asleep on the couch, I stared out the window, wondering who I could trust. Him? Or the woman who had spent her life trying to control mine? My phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. He's not who you think he is. Meet me at the restaurant on 5th Avenue. Tomorrow. Noon. No name. No context. But something in my gut told me exactly who it was. My mother *. The next day, I barely recognized the person in the mirror. My eyes were puffy from crying, my hair tied in a loose bun, my face pale. There was no trace of the bride who had been glowing with hope just days ago. I should have deleted that message. I should have ignored her, my mother, the woman who could twist the truth into whatever story she needed. But curiosity and fear are dangerous motivators. By noon, I found myself standing outside the Sterling Room, her favorite upscale restaurant. Everything about the place screamed power and arrogance, just like her. As soon as I walked in, the host smiled too politely. Miss Williams? Your mother's expecting you. Of course she was. Margaret Williams didn't request, she expected. She was already seated at her usual corner table, sipping a glass of champagne like it was an accessory. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, but there was something sharp behind her smile. Isabella, she said, setting the glass down. You look exhausted. Marriage already taking its toll? I didn't sit. Not yet. Why did you text me? Sit down, darling. We'll talk like civilized people. Against my better judgment, I did. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. You found out about Daniel, didn't you? I tensed. What about him? Don't play dumb. I warned you he wasn't who he seemed. I glared at her. You manipulated him, Mom. You hired him to spy on me. Correction, she said smoothly. I offered him an opportunity. He took it willingly. I clenched my fists. You don't know him. Oh, I do, Isabella. In fact, I knew him before you did. My heart stopped. What are you talking about? She smiled, that slow, cruel smile that always meant she was about to drop a bomb. Daniel Carter. That's not his real name. I blinked. What? She slid a manila folder across the table. I had him investigated. His real name is Daniel Reed. He changed it 5 years ago after his company went bankrupt. I froze. That's impossible. He lost millions of investor money, including mine, she said coldly. Your husband used to work for one of my partners. He stole blueprints, redirected funds, and when he was caught, he disappeared. No, my voice cracked. You're lying. She leaned back, satisfied. I have paperwork. Bank records. Emails. You think I'd come here without proof? The folder sat between us like poison. I didn't open it. I couldn't. So what, you think he married me to get back at you? Wouldn't that be poetic? She said dryly. The daughter of the woman who ruined him? Don't you see, Isabella? You were his ticket back into the world he lost. I pushed my chair back, shaking. You'll say anything to control me. She smirked. You can call it control. I call it protection. You don't see the danger until it's too late, you never did. I stood up, refusing to let her have the last word. If you're trying to break my marriage, it won't work. Her expression softened for just a second. Sweetheart, I'm not trying to break it. He already did. I turned and walked away before she could see the tears welling up again. Outside, I leaned against my car, trying to catch my breath. Daniel couldn't be that man. He couldn't. He was kind, steady, loving, not some corporate criminal, but the doubt my mother planted began to fester again. That night, when Daniel came home, I confronted him head on. Who are you? I demanded. What are you talking about? Your name. Is your real name Daniel Reed? He froze, and that was all the answer I needed. So it's true, I whispered. Isabella, I can explain. Explain how you lied about your entire life? He took a deep breath, eyes filled with guilt. I changed my name because I wanted to start over. I didn't steal anything, I took the blame for something I didn't do. Your mother and her partners covered their own corruption and pinned it on me. I didn't know what to believe. His words sounded desperate. But honest. You could have told me. I wanted to, I tried. But when I found out who your mother was, I was afraid I'd lose you. He reached for me, but I stepped back. I don't even know who I married anymore. He looked broken. You married a man who loves you more than his past. But love, I realized, wasn't always enough to silence the noise of betrayal. I turned away. Tears burning down my cheeks. Behind me, Daniel whispered. Your mother won't stop until she destroys me. And now she'll use you to do it. That night, I sat in my car for hours after Daniel fell asleep. The rain tapped against the windshield in steady rhythm, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. My mind felt like it was splitting in two. On one side, Daniel, the man who'd stood by me through everything, who'd loved me when my own mother couldn't. On the other, the lies, the secrets, the past he never told me about, and in between, was my mother, pulling the strings like she always did. I finally made a choice. I wasn't going to believe either of them until I saw the truth for myself. The next morning, I drove straight to City Archives, a gray building that smelled like dust and old lies. I requested every file I could find under the name Daniel Reed. It took hours, long, draining hours, until the clerk returned with a thin folder, just one. When I opened it, my breath caught. There was a headline from 6 years ago: construction executive accused of fraud, $8 million missing from Williams development project. Below it, Daniel's face, younger, cleaner cut. But undeniably him. But as I kept reading, something felt off. The investigation report was vague, with missing pages. The signatures didn't match. And one of the witnesses listed was Margaret Williams. My mother. The story claimed Daniel redirected project funds to a shell company, one that was dissolved right after the case was dropped. But when I looked closer, the address of that company seemed familiar. Too familiar. I pulled out my phone and searched it. It was the same address as my mother's old warehouse, the one she'd sold years ago. My heart stopped. If that was true, then the stolen money wasn't Daniel's doing. It was hers. The realization hit like ice in my veins. She'd framed him. She'd destroyed his career, buried his name, and then made sure he'd never rise again. And now, she'd tried to destroy his marriage too, using me. By the time I got home, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock the door. Daniel was sitting on the couch, eyes red from exhaustion. He looked up when I entered, startled. Isabella, where were you? Finding the truth, I said quietly. I dropped the folder on the coffee table. He hesitated before opening it. When he did, I saw his jaw tighten. You found it, he whispered. You didn't steal that money, did you? No, he said, his voice breaking. I tried to expose what was happening, the embezzlement, the fake invoices, but when the investigation started, your mother turned it on me. She had more power, more influence. I didn't stand a chance. I sat down beside him, tears threatening to fall. You should have told me. I didn't want you to hate her, he said softly. She's still your mother. I laughed bitterly. She stopped being my mother the day she sold her soul for status. He reached for my hand. This time, I didn't pull away. She'll come after us again, he warned. Now that she knows you're learning the truth. Then we stop hiding, I said. We fight back. There was fire in my chest now, not fear, not pain, clarity. I wasn't the fragile girl she'd raised to be silent. I was the woman she created through her cruelty, and now, I was done playing her games. That night, Daniel and I made a plan. We'd gather proof, every record, every transaction, every lie she'd ever built her empire on, and when the time came, we'd expose her. But as I stood at the window later, watching lightning crack through the sky, I couldn't shake the feeling that she already knew that somewhere out there, Margaret Williams was watching and preparing her next move. Because my mother didn't lose. She erased, and this time, the thing she wanted to erase was me. For the next few days, Daniel and I lived in quiet chaos. Every drawer, every flash drive, every folder in our house became a clue. We worked like detectives, side by side, but always with that invisible fear hanging in the air. My mother, Margaret Williams, wasn't the kind of woman who let people win against her. She was powerful. And power like hers didn't crumble easily. It fought back. We managed to dig up old records, emails Daniel had saved, copies of contracts, bank statements with strange transfers. Every trail led back to her company, and worse, to her personal account. She covered everything, Daniel murmured one night, scanning through the papers. Then we uncover it, I said. We decided to meet with a journalist Daniel once trusted, a man named Ethan Ross, who had covered corporate scandals years ago. If we could prove what she did, he could publish the truth. But before we could meet him, something strange started happening. Our internet went out, every device, all at once. Then Daniel's phone froze, screen glitching. An hour later, he checked his bank app. His account balance read, $0.00. All our savings gone. What the hell? She knows, I whispered. She's retaliating. He looked at me, panic mixing with guilt. I should have moved the funds when I had the chance. No, I said. This isn't your fault. She's playing her last game, intimidation. The next morning, I went to her office. Alone, when her assistant saw me, her eyes widened. She's busy, Miss Williams. Not anymore, I said. Tell her daughter's here to end this. I didn't wait for permission. I walked in and Margaret was by the window, phone in hand, speaking in that smooth, commanding voice that always made people obey. She turned slowly, hanging up mid-sentence. Isabella, she said coolly. You look tired. Marriage not suiting you? I didn't respond. I tossed the folder of evidence onto her desk. You framed Daniel. You used him, destroyed him, and now you're trying to ruin us both. She didn't even blink. So he told you his version of the story. I have proof, Mom. Emails. Transfers. Witnesses. She smiled, not with fear, but amusement. Do you think a few old papers will undo me? You really don't understand the world you're stepping into. No, I understand it now, I shot back. And I'm not afraid of it anymore. For a split second, something flickered in her eyes, annoyance, maybe even fear. Then she smirked. You've always been emotional, Isabella. That's why you'll never win. She sat back down, cool and composed. If you publish anything, I'll sue you both for defamation. I'll crush you with lawyers before you can even say the word truth. Then why erase our accounts? I snapped. Why panic if you have nothing to hide? Her expression froze. It was subtle, but I saw it. That tiny crack in her confidence. You can't touch me, she said quietly. And you never will. I turned to leave. You're wrong, I said. You raised me to be like you. Cold. Relentless. But I learned something you never did. Guilt doesn't go away just because you bury it. She didn't reply that night. Daniel and I drove to meet Ethan Ross, the journalist. But when we arrived at the cafe, it was empty. No sign of him. Daniel called his number. No answer. He tried again. Voicemail. Then, a few minutes later, a text appeared on his screen, meeting cancelled. Don't contact me again. You're being watched. I felt the blood drain from my face. She got to him, I whispered. Daniel gripped the steering wheel, jaw tight. She's burning every bridge we have. We sat there in the car. Headlights off, the city lights flickering through the rain. For the first time, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was war. And in wars like these, one person always loses everything. Sleep became a luxury we couldn't afford. For the next 3 days, Daniel and I lived on caffeine and nerves, our world shrinking to the walls of our small home and the files spread across our table. Margaret Williams wasn't just my mother anymore. She was an empire, one that had bought silence, power, and fear for decades, and the only way to break her was to make her destroy herself. Daniel's idea came first. She doesn't care about money, he said, eyes dark with determination. She cares about reputation. About the illusion that she's untouchable. He was right. My mother's entire life was built on the image of a perfect businesswoman, generous, elegant, respected. If the world saw the monster behind that mask, she'd lose everything faster than any court could take it from her. We needed something big, undeniable, something that would expose her live. That's when I remembered her upcoming charity gala, an event broadcast every year, where the city's elite gathered to praise her philanthropy. She always made a speech, always showed off how self-made she was. If we can show the proof there, I said quietly, she can't hide behind her lawyers. Not when the cameras are rolling. Daniel hesitated. You want to crash the gala? No, I said. I want to end it. The night of the event, the ballroom gleamed like a diamond, chandeliers, violins, gold accents everywhere. Margaret stood on stage, in her signature silver gown, smiling as the crowd applauded her. I watched from the back, hidden in plain sight. Daniel had managed to get us both in under guest passes from a former employee, someone who hated her almost as much as we did. As she began her speech, I felt my heart pounding against my ribs. Tonight, she said proudly, we celebrate progress, innovation, and the strength of family. That last word nearly made me laugh out loud. Family. The one thing she'd broken over and over again. At that moment, Daniel sent the signal. A nod. It was time. He slipped toward the media control booth while I walked closer to the stage. Clutching a small flash drive in my hand, the one holding every document. Every recording, every lie she'd buried. When she finished her speech, the lights dimmed for the next presentation. That's when Daniel plugged the drive into the main display. The big screen flickered. At first, people thought it was part of the show. Then the first file appeared, bank transfers. emails, signatures, each one showing Margaret Williams approving illegal transactions, laundering money through fake construction projects, all tied to the same scandal that had destroyed Daniel's name. The crowd went silent, then the whispers started. Gasps. Cameras. Turned toward her. Margaret's smile froze. Turn that off. She shouted to the technicians. Turn it off now. But it was too late. The final file displayed her voice, a recorded call where she said, "If Daniel Reed takes the fall, we all walk free. Make sure the papers disappear." Her own words. The ballroom erupted. Reporters raised their phones, guests whispered in disbelief, security scrambled. Margaret stood on stage, trembling, her mask cracking in real time. I stepped forward. "You always said image was everything, Mom. I hope you like yours now." Her eyes widened as she saw me, standing there, calm, unafraid. You did this?" "No," I said quietly. "You did." For the first time in my life, I saw her not as the woman who raised me, but as the woman she'd always been, powerful, ruthless, and now broken. Security escorted her off stage as reporters swarmed. Daniel took my hand, his grip firm and warm. "It's over," he whispered. "No," I said, watching her being led away. "For her, it's just beginning." That night, the news spread like wildfire. Margaret Williams, arrested for corporate fraud and conspiracy. Anonymous source leaks evidence at charity gala. Her empire crumbled in hours. Investors pulled out. Her board resigned. Everything she'd built on lies fell apart. Daniel and I sat on our porch, exhausted but free. "You think she'll ever forgive us?" he asked quietly. "Forgive?" I said with a faint smile. "She'll never forgive losing." The stars above us looked brighter that night. For once, I wasn't living in her shadow. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn her love, and in the end, I found something better. Peace. It had been 3 months since the gala. 3 months since my mother's empire collapsed. Since her name became the face of every scandal headline in the city. 3 months since I stopped waking up with that ache in my chest that used to come from loving someone who only ever made me feel small. Daniel and I moved into a quiet house outside the city. Nothing fancy, just peace, sunlight, and the kind of silence that didn't feel heavy anymore. But even peace comes with ghosts. Sometimes I'd wake up at night and think of her, not the powerful woman in the silver gown, not the ruthless business queen, but the mother who once braided my hair before school and told me fairy tales about good people always winning. I wondered if she ever thought she'd become the villain in my story. One morning, while Daniel was fixing the old mailbox outside, I found an envelope wedged between the day's bills. No return address. Just my name, written in that same elegant handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Margaret Williams. I froze. She was in prison, county holding until sentencing, but somehow, she'd managed to send me this. I carried it inside, sat down at the table, and stared at it for what felt like forever before finally tearing it open. The letter began. "My dearest Isabella, if you're reading this, then I suppose I've lost everything that ever mattered to me, except, perhaps, you." My throat tightened. "You were right that night at the vineyard. I've spent my entire life confusing control with love. I thought protecting you meant shaping you into my image. But I see now that I was just afraid of you becoming me." I blinked back tears as I kept reading. "I won't ask you for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I only want you to know one thing. When I hired Daniel, I didn't know he loved you already. I saw the way he looked at you, and it terrified me. Because no man ever looked at me that way." The next lines were shakier, the ink slightly smudged. "I destroyed his life because he saw through me. And you saw what I never could, that love isn't weakness. It's power. Don't let my mistakes define you. Be strong, but gentle. Ruthless, but kind. Everything I failed to be." At the bottom, she'd written one final line, underlined twice. "Tell him. I'm sorry." I set the letter down, my hands trembling. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anger, just sadness. Maybe this was her revenge too, not in power or manipulation, but in the quiet truth of her own downfall. When Daniel came inside, I handed him the letter. He read it slowly, his expression unreadable. "She said she's sorry," I whispered. "Do you believe her?" I believe she meant it. And maybe that's enough." We stood there for a while, silent, the morning light pouring through the window. Then Daniel smiled faintly. "So what now?" I looked out at the open fields beyond the house, the vineyard where we first promised each other peace. "Now," I said softly, "we build something new. No lies. No legacy. Just us." That night, after Daniel fell asleep, I sat outside under the stars, the letter folded neatly beside me. The air was cool, still, peaceful, and for the first time in my life, I whispered something I'd never said before, not to her, not to anyone. "Goodbye, Mom." The wind carried it away. And just like that, the story that began with pride, control, and pain ended in quiet forgiveness, because in the end, revenge wasn't destroying her. It was surviving her. Sometimes, revenge isn't loud. It's simply choosing peace when chaos expects your rage.